Support the Amigos podcast on Patreon or PayPal and receive cool perks and rad swag. Visit our page at everythingamiga.com/support.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm
today,
Aaron.
Aaron, it's Public Domain Week.
Woo! That's why I wore my special shirt.
That's what I
up.
figured. We're going to be playing Space Taxi 3 and Alien Bash 2. Two sequels that go better together.
That's right.
Before we get into the games, though, Aaron, we received some Amigos mail this week. And I know you're going to appreciate this. Check out this postcard that we received.
All right. Oh, it's Cthulhu.
Yeah, he's dressed just like a luchador in a smart-looking business suit.
Yes, he is, with a Mothman on his briefcase.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't notice that. So it reads, "Hey, Amiga fans and Spectrum fans and Atari 8-bit lords, and I keep forgetting any. Am I forgetting any systems? I bought. Oh yeah, he might. No, yeah, he did forget the Coco. I bought this postcard on the Venice, California boardwalk in 2001. I thought it was inspired by Lovecraft, but the artist selling the postcard had no idea who Lovecraft or his mythos, monsters, creatures, gods even were. This postcard is coming your way just because it's weird. I'm still playing catch-up with the Amigos podcast, so I'm not even sure if that Amiga 600 motherboard I sent your way works or could be used. Oh, I know that the AGA chipset didn't add tons of features, but to say it's not better than ECS, well, you hopefully say this in jest, right? No. Hello from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Adam Trionfo, and he can be reached at valleyalley.com.
Now, I remember Adam because we did actually use that motherboard, and it worked. I remember I cleaned it up and it worked. So that's awesome.
We got several 600s like all in a row there for a while.
Yeah. And so that's, first of all, great postcard, right up my alley. The guy that I possibly never heard of Lovecraft, maybe just wanted to have a squid head in there. But I love it. And the fact that he got that in Venice Beach, the home of the Hulkster. Right. Hulk Hogan. I think Sting's from out that way too. But I like the idea of picking up postcards as you're walking along the sand. I kind of think that's kind of neat, as opposed to going down to Fruit or Rite Aid getting like we do. But thank you very much, man. And we also appreciate the motherboard, which again we did get working. Yeah. So catch up. You'll hear about it.
Now, as far as our site updates this week, we don't have anything going on everythingamiga.com, but we do have an Amigos community update. The Amigos High Score Challenge has been launched, Aaron. And the Amigos High Score Challenge is this week, and this is open to everybody that is a patron or is a Discord member, and you can become a Discord member by either supporting the show through a Twitch subscription or by just giving us $1 a month. That's as little as it takes to get you into our Discord community, and you can take part in this High Score Challenge. We're going to be playing Bubble Bobble towards the end of the month. And right now, Chris Folds is in the lead with a score of 306,000 points. We want to thank Paul and Frodo and Luke Hudson and Mr. Cola for participating, as well as myself holding steady in second place. Aaron, where's your score?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Boatster, because I was at home today from the job and sat down to play some Bubble Bobble. As you know, it's not my favorite game. But I sat down to play it because I'm a team player. And I thought, maybe I can give a good score. And I had scored, I did manage to get a score of 123,000 points. I felt pretty good about that score. I mean, it's not as good as everybody else, but I thought that's okay. And so I went back to play more times. And so I played this one time that this game is bizarre. It's like Mr. Do on acid because weird stuff happens. And like one time, this huge diamond fell down the middle of the screen. That gave me like 50,000 points. That's how I got that big score. But this other time, I got warped. I managed to I spelled the word, and it warped me to level 18. All right, from level like 7 or whatever. And level 18 has like these pitchfork walls. And my little guy went down into one of the spokes, and I couldn't get out, and the game wouldn't end. So I just had to reset it. And when I did that, I lost my score. So that's what. There you go. You wanted a story. There you go. So I will be submitting a score, but it won't be 123,000 or whatever it was. I bet
before. You know, this is one of these games. I'm not a huge fan of Bubble Bobble, but I have been playing it quite a bit. It's sort of like whenever I've got some downtime at work, I fire it up, and it is addictive. I've come to appreciate it more. But of course, I'll give you my full thoughts on that when we play it in a couple weeks. But we will give you a high score challenge update here on the show every week up until the final episode where we talk about Bubble Bobble for real.
I will say this. Much like the Cthulhu and that postcard, if you listen to that song enough times, you will be driven mad.
Oh yes. And we want to thank Hermsky for setting this whole thing up for us. Thank you, Hermsky.
Yeah, I'm glad we our buddies over at the Coco Talk do it a Coco high score, so I'm glad to get on the action, get some high score action. I like it.
All right, let's talk about what's been going on over at the YouTube channel, Aaron.
All righty, if I can get my browser to get me over there, I will talk about it with you. So we did put up some videos this week, Bo. Let me scoot back here. So I guess. Looking at the what we had in a row here, the first thing I guess we're going to talk about here is our ARG Presents last week. You could be one of the few to come over and have a look at this show. This last week's show, actually I really enjoyed it too. Last week's show was on arcade games that have no buttons. They were all trackball or twin joysticks or something else, and it was neat to go through and try to pick out games that don't use buttons. There weren't as many as I thought there'd be, to be honest with you, Boat. And then we picked a couple. We picked a couple winners. I thought I picked the game based on the incredible and awesome movie Krull, and then Brent picked Nibbler. It's funny because after we did that episode, I think it was Buck Owens had mentioned that there was a movie made about Nibbler called Man vs. Snake. And I watched that this week, and it was a pretty good flick. I really enjoyed it actually. If you liked King of Kong, I think the same people made it. I thought you've seen it.
I've not seen it. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime Video if you've got that. But I enjoyed it. I thought that was really good. So if you're into that, check out No Button Arcades at ARG. This week we're going to be doing games that take place underground. So if you're into that, and actually that's another kind of wacky one. And we both ended up picking some real old school games for this episode. So if you're into that, we film live every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Boat, you dug up a long lost Ask the Amigos.
I did.
Episode. You want to talk about this?
There's not much to say. It's the same as the June one, except it's 1 month earlier. A bunch of
it was
the
indoors.
way that we do Ask the Amigos. Again, it's another feature of being a member of our Discord community. Discord folks ask us questions. We get a whole bunch of questions, and every time we do it, which is once a month, we answer all the questions. But it's a good time because it gives us a chance to talk about non-Amiga, sometimes not even non-computer or retro-related things. So it's a lot of fun.
I find myself enjoying that show more and more. Or whatever that is, and we should never film it indoors again. I think we should always. That was so much fun, having an adult beverage in the backyard and chatting for a couple hours. I just enjoyed that to know, and the questions were really fun. I love that. I love it. So that's up there right now. Let's talk about. Well, this is kind of a little off the center of this show, but this week I had a look at the Coco Keys to USB kit. For people that own Color Computer 2 or 3. And what this is, it's simply a keyboard interface that lets you hook up your Color Computer 2 or 3 keyboard to a PC or Raspberry Pi or whatever via the USB. It's sort of the key raw of the Coco. And I had quite a journey putting this thing together because it turns out that, lucky me, my hillbilly flea market Coco had a keyboard that the maker of this thing had never seen before, and so we had to pull some last minute hocus pocus, but we ended up getting it working. It's a pretty nice device, and I'll give the fellow that makes it all the credit in the world. So if you're into the Coco and you've got an old Coco 2 or 3 sitting around that doesn't work, this would be your cup of tea. And it's also inexpensive, Bo. I will say that. And then lastly, and this is just a little thing I put up. This is just a montage of games that have no buttons that I put up. So if that's your bag, you just want to go watch some game footage without any commentary, that's ready to go as well. But I think that covers pretty much everything. But did I
don't
miss
think
anything?
so. Good roundup.
All right, man.
All right, Aaron, let's move on. I hear the gamble train. The gamble train's huffing and puffing through the hills of West Virginia this week because it's been so freaking hot.
Everyone was huffing and puffing through the hills of West Virginia this week.
So it's time to talk about this week's Amiga news. We're going to start things off, Aaron, with... Let's see, let me pull it up real quick. I didn't have it ready to go. I did. It was just in a different tab. Donkey Kong.
We're never fully ready.
On the Amiga 1200, Aaron.
Holy, what?
This is Donkey Kong, but not just any Donkey Kong. This is Game & Watch Donkey Kong.
Oh, no kidding. On the 1200, you say.
Okay, now, this is not a normal 1200. Everybody knows to fully emulate a simple LCD watch piece of plastic from the early 80s requires an 060.
Oh, you're kidding
It's
me.
just like everything with the Amiga. If you don't have the top shelf processor, don't even bother. Go back to your Lotus 2 or whatever.
When it comes to modern stuff, we did a show on these on ARG, Game & Watch games. These are actually a lot of fun. It's amazing. The emulation one's actually pretty good. If you just, obviously the Amiga one looks good too. If you've got a jacked up Amiga, some of these games are actually pretty fun. Boat, I have to say, have you played a lot of these Game & Watches?
I haven't. That's one. It's always been one of my long-term projects to do a deep dive, especially like you said, because a lot of the front end packages like CoinOps have a dedicated Game & Watch tab, so you can play these things, and it's glorious because when you press the controller in one direction or another, you can see it kind of tilt down. So I'm a fan of these. I would like to collect them, but they're way outside of my budget. But I've heard that they can be very deep.
Yeah, they're actually some are better than others. But there's a one, I think maybe one Brent picked called Cement Factory. That was the one I'd played back in the day. I'd played some of these back in the day when they were not as expensive, and everyone sort of had that 101. And they're pretty fun. They're not a Game Boy or anything, but they're neat. And if you look at them now, they're a little more amusing just because of the wackiness behind them. The technology and stuff is different, but they're but you got to think what you're getting. Trust me, when you're in the car, I was telling my kid this today, we were out driving around. When I was a kid, we didn't have nothing. We didn't have jack squat. We were counting license plates and stuff. So these things were prime targets to take in the car with you back in the day and have something to do.
Yeah, and I will say that from the little that I've messed around with them, they seem to be quite a bit deeper than your garden variety Tiger electronic game.
Yeah, they put a little more thought into these. I'll have to say. Although the Tiger, again, when you have nothing, when you have one of those, you've got. Remember the things you had? They were full of water.
Oh yeah, you push the little thing.
You were, whatever you had was better than the nothing that you had before.
Absolutely. All right. So let me. And you can get this. This is, I guess, coming to us from Distrita.tv. Does no link here on where you can download that. So, but if you go to the show notes tab, or the show notes link at the bottom of the page, you can check it out. There's a new book, Amiga book, coming on the scene, Aaron. This is Indiegogo project, Demo Maker: The Amiga Years. This thing is almost funded. It needs $15,851. Needs $15,112. That seems insane to me for a book. That you would need that kind of a budget. I don't know much about how books are made, but
it looks pretty big.
15 grand's a lot of money. Maybe they're paying out to all of the people that made these games. I hope they are. This thing looks really, really nice. Nice quality hardback book. Looks like if you want to get in on the thing, it's going to cost you 35 euros or 45 US dollars. It's basically it looks like a lot like the bitmap books that have been a big part of the retro scene as of late. But this one is all based on demos. I know you were a big demo guy back in the day, Aaron. You thinking about picking this one up?
Oh, yeah. No. And I'll tell you, don't get me wrong. Yeah, this is probably going to be, it looks all glossy and thick and good, but it's weird to buy a book that features... To me, it seems odd to buy a book that features computer demos. It's just the concept that's odd. You get
the backstory behind them and all that stuff.
I suppose, and maybe these things have awesome backstories that I just have never heard. I just assumed a bunch of hardcore geeks got together and made these, and the backstory was them eating pizza and drinking Mountain Dew while they slaved and maybe taking some speed while they sit around coding these things. I didn't realize that. I mean, there maybe, hey, listen, prove me wrong if someone picks this thing up, because I know it's been talked about very fondly in a Discord. So I mean, there's going to definitely some people that we know are going to be getting it. So hey, and clearly they're two shakes from being backed. So somebody's going to push them over the top. When this comes out, we'll have to have a look at
Absolutely.
it. Demos are awesome. There's no doubt about that. And it's people don't understand what demos were anymore because they're different now. But I mean, there was a time when the demo, I mean, you were out there using these things to tell people, look at this. I can do this. This is what the machine can be pushed towards. You know what I'm saying? Now we sort of have been fleshed out what the machines can do. So now it's just like, what can these guys do to top themselves? That sort of thing. You know, but demos are out. Not only were they neat, but they were sort of important, if for anything, for your own self-esteem. When you
a lot of careers launched from the demo scene for sure.
Absolutely, you can see their fingerprints all over games and stuff too.
Especially that music. Oh God. Anyway.
Yes.
Amiga.
Maybe it'll come with the
Arcade Missile Command, Aaron.
Oh yeah.
Now this is this looks to be a pretty much frame by frame, a love letter to the classic game Missile Command from back in the day. The Amiga with its mouse is very well suited to Missile Command, much more so than any of the 8-bits that don't feature the mouse. This looks really good. Now, of course, I believe that from the comments on this takes an 060 and 8 gigs. I'm just kidding. This runs on a 512 OCS ECS Amiga. So
I was getting ready to fly to Europe or something. Be like, what? This looks great. I mean, this looks great. I mean, I wonder if they've enhanced it or all. If it's running, if it's emulating. I wonder what the scoop is on this.
This is a donationware. You can get this, download it from towerbyte.co.uk and name your own price. So you can check this out and let us know what you think.
I like this donationware stuff, and I'll tell you why. This is the way to do a game like this. It's a smart move, because listen. Would I float some dudes a few bucks to get Missile Command on the Amiga? Yeah, I would absolutely do that. You know, it looks good. Suckers get paid. Everybody's happy. So yeah, that sounds great. I'll have to be looking into this one, Bo. Yeah.
Up next, Aaron. This is another site, another donationware site that I think Pixels at Dawn clued me into this. This is a site called AmigaPD.com. At first, I thought that this was going to be an exhaustive collection of every public domain game released on the Amiga. This is not that. This is all new-ish Amiga public domain games. If you look at the recent games tab here, you can see, and so a lot of these are all from the 2013 and up. It looks like, but this is another site where if you enjoy having this repository, this guy has this thing set up to where you can actually donate to a charity for, I think it's a mental health charity. I don't know why it's so, MinCap. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's a learning disability charity, MinCap, the voice of learning disability. So I really like this idea because obviously public domain is not something that you should be charging for, especially if you're not the guy that wrote it or the gal that wrote it. So this is a chance for you to feel like, you're giving back to this guy who's collecting all these, putting them all in one place, and you're doing something good for society.
Well said, Boat. I agree fully on that. That's a good idea.
And finally, Aaron, we have a new Kickstarter. This one comes to us from our very own Discord community member, Simulant. Okay?
Oh, yes.
And he is designing retro computer inspired USB PC keyboards and mice. So these are keyboards that will interface with your computer. The difference is that they look like classic keyboards from the past. So he's taken things like color schemes and things like that. He's used logos, and he is got the sound going on there. Basically, he's designed these modern keyboards that have the retro flair, if you will. Have you had a chance to look at these, Aaron?
The retro
yeah.
flair.
Woo!
Get it? Woo! I love these. I looked at them. People come up with stuff, and when you look at it, it seems such an obvious idea. And you're like, I didn't think of this? Brilliant. That's why I'm dumb. He's got some great looking stuff here. I love these. I would sort of like to have them all in a lot of ways. You've got your Amiga. He's got one for the ZX. I think there's one in there for the Acorn. There's one for the Amstrad. Great. The color schemes are great. I think it's very clever, Bo, to be completely honest with you. And I think he's going to do very well. These are going to be high quality keyboards. I know he's going for a full height keyboard as opposed to sort of. I will say the keyboards that in the demo here are sort of have always looked like they remind me of the Coco's melted keyboard, a lot of which is just a great keyboard. But I think he's going to do real well with this, and I think it's a clever idea. There's also one like a CD32 one that looks really good. I don't know if you saw that one. Have you looked through these at all? They're quite clever.
And I know that he's got the Amiga. The Amiga one is fully functional. Then he's got several that are sort of in the design phase. And so I really like the Amstrad one. Because it's got the colors.
The Amstrad one it looks. The Amstrad is I love the one you got at the house. It's just that is a wacky looking machine. Big, long, weird colors. I love it. The wackier, the better. That's my motto. And the keyboard matches up perfectly. So I'm down with that. I'd be interested to see which one of these is the biggest seller at the end of the day, because I could certainly see people collecting them all. I really can, and it would be neat to just to have around. So I think these are going to do real well, and I think it's a clever idea.
Absolutely. And Aaron, the last little bit of news before we move on. This is a surprise, as Gomer Pyle would say. It's Amigathon, Aaron.
It's Zoidberg.
Yeah. It's back. Amigathon 2020. Consider this the official announcement. We are overcoming COVID-19. We're overcoming everything 2020 can possibly throw at us to bring you, the listener, the 4th annual Amigathon. We've now done an Amigathon for every year we were in high school.
Oh, God. Some of them felt longer than a high school.
That's true.
Right.
This is going to be July 18th, 2020, starting at 12 noon UTC. That is 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the States. And we will be going 12 full hours of Amiga action. This year, every year we like to do something a little bit different. This year, we are playing all our favorite games. You, me, but that's not all. The Brent is going to be contributing some content, and we're going to have some special guest streams during the event from none other than Amiga superstar Amiga Bill and worldwide superstar retro gaming personality Retro Man Cave himself will also be.
Smooth
that's
customer.
right. So anyway, as always, all of the Amigathons, actually the first one was not this way, but all the past couple Amigathons, we always benefit Children's Miracle Network hospitals. You can donate right now at Amigathon.com if you want to get yours in early. We've already raised $100, Aaron. So
all right.
We have a goal of $2,000. Of course, if we go over that, that's so much the better. But and also, in addition to that, we are going to be having a couple competitions during Amigathon this year, Aaron. Not amongst ourselves, because I think the audience has had quite enough of our artistic endeavors. But we are soliciting mod files and dpaint files, and we're going to have a live voting in Twitch. Twitch has done so much over the past year to increase its interactivity. I actually got this idea from Retro Man Cave, who runs polls and trivia contests and stuff all the time on his streams. And so we are going to have live voting on the best mod files and the best dpaint submissions. So if you would like to submit those, this is the way that we're going to do it. You need to upload a YouTube video of your mod player playing your mod, and then send me that link. And also, if you want to enter a dpaint submission, just make a JPEG of your dpaint submission and email that to me. We are not going to be using real hardware because it has the potential for mass disaster, as anybody at Amiga Ireland can attest.
I was going to say, you got burnt. You were there firsthand for the hand burning that was Amiga Ireland.
So anyway, once again, YouTube, your Octamed or your favorite mod player of choice playing your mod file, and send me those dpaint submissions through JPEG or PNG, something I can open on my computer. I'm looking forward to this one, Aaron. I'm already getting excited. It's going to be a good time.
It will be. There'll definitely be a happening. I'm looking forward to raising some money. You know, I'm looking forward to some good karma. This has been a rough year. You know, I mean, obviously for everybody in the world, it's one of the few times you can say that everyone in the world has had a crappy year, and so. For at least 12 hours, I'm looking forward to having the not crappy year. Sit down and play some games, have some fun, visit with all of our friends. We are taking sort of a laid-back approach to the Amigathon this year because it will provide everyone a comfortable, stress-free, enjoyable atmosphere.
Now, Aaron, you know me. Ordinarily, most of the time, all the time, I'm cool as a cucumber. When things don't go my way, I overcome immediately. So I don't know why we're doing it this way, but I guess I can live with the fact that things might be a little bit more laid back this year.
Exactly. We're all under enough stress now and that's not counting people that are starting new jobs, for example. We're going to just chill out. And I honestly, and we talked, me and Boat it's amazing how little we had gotten done on the Amigathon until just a week or so ago because we weren't sure we could ever do one. You know, and FYI, there's the possibility that if something weird happens, we may have to remotely do this. It's not with outside their own pod. We're hoping to get together, the two of us. But any way it goes, there will be an Amigathon. It will be fun. I demand it. And hopefully we'll raise some bucks. And whether we get $2,000 or not or more, whatever we get will be going directly to charity. None of it we don't touch any of it. It goes directly to charity, and it'll help out some kids who need it. So that's the important thing, and hopefully everyone will have a good time too.
Yeah. All right. Well, Aaron, why don't we dive right in to this week's first game? As always, in PD Weeks, we do 2 games. The first game of this week, why don't we talk a little bit about Space Taxi 3?
Space Taxi! Now, had you... Surely, because it's funny, we've never played this on any other machine, like formally. Space Taxi 1, I mean. I'm guessing at some point you've probably had a go at this on some other machine. Because I believe this was out in the Spectrum, the Atari. Almost everybody got a port of Space Taxi 1. So you have had a go at it then. Now, I had never heard of this, as are most of the Public Domania games. I never heard of this one. Space Taxi 3. Now, this was released in '94, Boat, so not real late in the game. A disc. This was an interesting sort of how can I put this? Sort of an updated version of the original Space Taxi. The funny thing about Space Taxi is, if you've never played it, and let's just go into, I'll talk about who did it and stuff, but let's just talk about the basic principles of Space Taxi, because they really never change. You're a space taxi, just like it sounds. People call you to tell you to come pick them up.
And you have that famous theme.
Right. And then you take them to wherever they want to go. You drop them off, and then you go pick up somebody else. You do that and on this game until you clear the level, and then you leave. It's that simple. Now, what's interesting about this game is this was not even close to the first time this game had been done on the Amiga.
Obviously it's Space Taxi 3.
Right, but you also, I could not find Space Taxi 2.
Maybe it's like Leonard Part 6.
But you had Space Taxi, you had Air Taxi, and you also had UGG, which, as I recall, the most hated game we reviewed that year. So people weren't keen on UGG, and now granted, this is public domain, but if you compare UGG to this, UGG has a lot more charm and beauty than this does, but this does bring some interesting stuff to the table. So this was coded by a guy named Andreas Spreen, and my gosh, one of the guys that did the graphics in this, his name, it looks like you took a Scrabble board and just threw it down. Djormagoski is Alexander that, and then you also had Frank Bernard, Stefan Mueller, Stephen Cameron. And if you'll notice, this game has some audio, digitized speech in it. That was done by a fellow named Neil Brewitt. This runs on any Amiga pretty much. And what you've got here is, like I said, I described the game. But they've actually expounded on the premise of Space Taxi with some really crazy and difficult levels that involve like almost going through mazes, teleporting, avoiding obstacles that float around, avoiding invisible obstacles. There's a ton of variants here. They give you when you start the game, you get a lot of difficulty options, and each one of them will have 5 or 6 levels in that difficulty option. I don't know how many of these you experimented with, both, but they get pretty hot and heavy as you go through. There are a total of 49 levels in the game, and a lot of variants, and so the game's got that going for it. Another thing the game's got going for it, and this boat is a rarity. This thing has support for 4 simultaneous players. Boat.
I did know that.
4.
I had every intention of jumping on Amiga Live this past week and going to town with some of our Discord buddies.
That's a good idea.
Maybe during Amigathon this year, we might try that out, because apparently, according to Pix, this is a prime game on Amiga Live. Unfortunately,
I keep forgetting that.
Unfortunately, my schedule did not allow for that. But I would love to try and play this thing 4-player for sure. And it's 4-player. You can either do it, everybody's doing their own thing, or you can do 4-player cooperative, which is super cool too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the idea. I was dying to play this more than one player. It looked like that's where the money's at, and I'd wager this would be a fun party game. As a solo experience, though, listen, we've played a ton of public domain games. Is this a beautiful game? No. Is it a game that has awesome music and visuals to beat the band? No, it's none of those things. But what is it? It plays a pretty decent game of Space Taxi. I found the controls pretty responsive. You could have it so you're automatically your landing gear automatically goes up when you leave a pad, or you can make it to where you have to hit a button.
Oh, really? I did not consult.
Yeah.
See, to me, that is part of the thing that makes Space Taxi is that you don't have that option. You know.
Well, now you still. If you have it on automatic, you still have to put it down. Okay. You just don't have to take it up when you leave. So it's not like it's a total.
But in a way, it's making it a little easier.
I turned it on. The funny thing is, I turned it on, and it made it worse because I was so used to dropping it that I kept hitting the button, undropping it, and crashing. So if you've played this game over the years, you're probably just going to, which is default. It's off default. So I would probably leave it off, unless you just have never played Space Taxi and you're not used to doing that sort of thing. Then you could leave it on. I found the controls. It's not like I've played a ton of Space Taxi over the year, but I've had a cup of coffee now and again with it on various machines. But I found the controls pretty responsive, and I thought the digitized sound was okay. I mean, it's exactly what you would expect. They'll be like, "Take me to pad 1, take me to pad 8," whatever. And you would do it. Really the only graphical thing of interest is there's a sort of a ray traced opening picture that looks okay.
Yeah, it looks okay.
But the rest of the game is pretty. It certainly does not flex the Amiga's graphical muscle. But then again, this game, and I mean, it depends on what you're after. Were they trying to make a spiritual successor to Space Taxi 3, or Space Taxi, which I think they were. And so it's what you've got, no frills. If they were trying to do like one of these updated, like graphically enhanced versions, that's not what you got, because that's not what it is. Well, what did you think of this one, Boaster?
This is a solid public domain game. Solid. Tons of stages. Your little Space Taxi. The Space Taxi itself looks fine. Where this game falls flat for me is the stage layout itself. If you play the C64 version, the stages are very whimsical. It's almost like, when you play Worms, a lot of the fun of Worms is seeing like all of the different stages, with like the phone booth stuck in the sand and all that stuff. This game has about 10% of that. Like, there are some stages where there are objects on, that you're flying, but a lot of the stages are just flat platforms, and And so if I'm playing a single player Space Taxi, I'm going to go for the C64 version every single time, just because it's more interesting to look at. You know, the pads are in interesting places. Like there's one that's at the beach, you know, and stuff like that. But again, this is a public domain game. You know, it was available for free, and it's got that 4-player simultaneous thing. I mean, there's not a whole lot of commercially released games that had 4-player simultaneous play. So I would put this up there with some of the best public domain games that we've reviewed on the show for sure.
Well, I think it does what it says on the tin, as they say. This is a Space Taxi game. Nothing more, nothing less. It controls well. Like I said, I don't have a problem with it. It's fun. Is this a game I'd rather play with more people than less? Yes. In fact, I've never played this game with more people, so the thought of that sounds great. Competing for fares and whatnot sounds like a lot of fun. They could have enhanced this somewhat, but I haven't. By the way, I've not seen the C64 version of this, so I don't know how it plays.
What version have you spent the most time with?
I believe I played this a lot on the Atari, and I have played the. Gosh, what's the other? I think the other one I played the most of was on the. I'm trying to think back. There wasn't a Coco version of this. It must have been. I guess I've played mostly on the Atari. I don't think I've played, and not Space Taxi 3.
Oh yeah, I mean there is no Space Taxi 3 on the Commodore. I'm talking about Space Taxi.
And so really comparing this to Space Taxi is sort of not fair.
Well, except for the fact that you're comparing it to a version which should be inferior in every way. But it's not.
Right, I'm not. But I mean, no, I'm just saying I have not played the C64 version. So I mean, I believe you. I mean,
this game cries out for, you know, first of all, you know, what is the direct spiritual successor to this game?
Crazy Taxi.
And what is one thing that you remember about playing Crazy? Actually, there's two things. And I'm guessing, I'm taking a shot in the dark that you're going to say the same two things that I do. What are the two things that you think about most when you're playing Crazy Taxi?
The first thing, yeah.
Right, the music.
The Offspring song, the music. The second thing is, there's a bunch of stuff. I guess the thing I think about the most is the wacky people you pick up. That's always
for me,
fun.
It's the scenery. It's especially the product placement. You know.
Yeah, the product placement's fun, and it's real. At least on some versions, it's real.
You know, that all feeds into, you know, and of course they're not going to put product placement in a game like this, but making the stages, you know, as colorful as you can, as sort of visually engaging as you can. To me, that is really the heart of Space Taxi. Because, I mean, at its core, you're really just playing Lunar Lander a bunch. That's all Space Taxi is. It's playing Lunar...
Except Lunar Lander is half
Right. But I mean, what you're doing is you're landing your craft without crashing over and over and over again. Another thing that this game's called Space Taxi, okay? You need to have the fare counter. There's no fare counter counting down this. There's a lame bonus. I mean, what are we talking about here? It's like something out of Donkey Kong. You need to have a fare counter that's counting down in real US dollar currency, okay? If it's not Space Taxi, if it's a dumb bonus, I think that's lame too. So
that's a good observation, Bo. You know, I didn't think about that.
Again, the C64
but it makes
version
more
has
sense that it would. And all you have to do is literally change one thing to, like, say, I mean, just have to change one word on the screen and change the way the numbers add up. That would make it a lot more taxi-like, that's for sure.
Yeah, and apparently the chat is saying that the Space Taxi was a C64 exclusive. So
there you go. Maybe I have played the C64. I was thinking I know I played this on the Atari 8-bit. I guarantee there's one out there for it. All that said, what do you think of this game? Are you going to recommend it?
I recommend it wholeheartedly. Like, if you are an Amiga, if you are the L. Curtis Boyle of the Amiga world, and you won't touch any other system with a 10-foot pole, then you should play this, because you're not going to have a better experience anywhere else. You know, in terms of, this is a much better game. It's not as pretty as UGG. It doesn't have the charm of UGG, but this is a game that you're going to play for longer than UGG for sure. Especially if you involve the multiplayer component.
I like everything about UGG better, except for the fact that the control. The control on this, the way the car controls, the way he moves around, I think it's a superior engine for that. UG, it's just got a lot more character and stuff. Obviously, it's cute.
But
cool
if you are only going to play one Space Taxi, then load up the C64 because that's when you're going to have the best time.
Okay. Wow. Listen to you putting over the C64.
I've never been biased against anything. I just call it like I see it.
Yeah, but you often talk about how much you hate the C64.
That doesn't.
And it's brown.
That doesn't change the fact that they have the best version of Space Taxi.
That gives me hope because I'm playing a C64 game this weekend, so maybe you won't kill it. So there were no reviews on this boat except for the Lemon review, which they gave this a 7.58, which that's seems fair. I think overall I would give this the thumbs up as well. It's funny, as much as I like the UG and I thought UG looked better, at the end of the day, I think I agree with you. I would probably play this one first. So there you go. And with 4 players, to be determined, but that sounds like a party to me. Yeah,
absolutely. We got quite a few reviews on Discord for Space Taxi 3. Let's start things off with Paul, a.k.a. Hermsky. He gives this a firm 5 out of 10.
Oh.
Probably being a bit harsh with my score considering it's a PD game. Enjoyable game to play, but soon found the game too repetitive. I like the quirky voices from punters calling for a taxi, and I like some of the wacky levels. The game's mechanics reminded me of the 8-bit thrust games from the 80s. Overall, a fun experience, but not one I could go back to. Frodo NL writes, enjoyable game for about 15 minutes. After that, it just gets repetitive. The voices are fun and control is pretty good though. Not bad, but unlike Alien Bash 2, a game that could only come out as PD. 5 out of 10. And again, that's where the sort of fun levels really come. Because again, it does get repetitive unless you're like, boy, I wonder what the next level looks like. Jason Warrens says, classic. 7 out of 10. Chris Fold says, a terrible Space Taxi clone hybrid reboot thing. Totally lacking in the charm, fun, and excitement of the original, and quickly gets dull. Stick to UG for a good Space Taxi game on the Amiga. 4 out of 10. And finally, Pixels at Dawn writes, not a graphical or audio tour de force, but a really solid and often overlooked multiplayer game in both competitive and cooperative modes. Either you're shouting at each other to coordinate your movements or planning a way to push someone into a wall without taking yourself out at the same time. Also comes with a stunning variety of inventive levels. One of the first choices to play on Amiga Live. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, we're going to have to, this one to be continued when we actually get down and sit down and play this thing live. We should absolutely get together and do that. Plus, get some video going. That'd be fun.
Absolutely. All right, Aaron, let's go ahead and move on to our next game, Alien Bash 2.
This is a wacky game, if I may say, if I may be so bold. Alien Bash 2. Now, I will admit I've never played this, and I never heard of this or Alien Bash 1. In fact, I still haven't played Alien Bash.
Me neither.
This one came out a couple years after Space Taxi, Boatster, in 96.
I'm sorry, I just want to apologize for everyone that had the music blasted in their ears a second ago. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what you get. So, this was an Amiga format cover disc, Boat, believe it or not. This was on Amiga format number 86. And it was also apparently on Alien. The original Alien Bash was also a magazine game. It was released on the issue 1993 June disc B. This one had multiple discs.
It was the glory days, the magazine cover disc.
I mean, I'm telling you, when I used to go to the magazine store, and they would have these Amiga format Amiga. I loved the discs. I just loved that. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was great. So, anyway, Amiga Bash. Listen to me, Alien Bash 2. This was put together by a fellow named Glenn Cumming. He also worked on the original Alien Bash. The graphics were done by Miles Jeffrey. Music by D. Traumer and Glenn Cumming as well. So
let me ask you a question: Is it D? Is it D like Sandra D, like DEE?
D period. That's all they've got.
First name's D, middle name's that period.
Listen, this guy's not going to reveal his first name to you. It might be something embarrassing. True. He don't want you to know what it is. This runs on pretty much anything. And when you look at this game, I have to say, Boat, one thing about this game is that when you start playing it, you pretty much know what you're doing straight out of the gate. It's a run around and shoot stuff game, pretty much. Now, having not played Alien Bash 1, I did have a quick look at it, and this looks clearly they had advanced considerably from Alien Bash 1 with this in terms of
so
graphics.
Is Alien, because I didn't look at Alien Bash 1 at all, is Alien Bash 1 this kind of game, just Alien Bash 2's better graphics?
I just looked at a couple still shots. I didn't actually watch any of the gameplay of it, so I don't know exactly what the gameplay is like. Maybe one of these days we'll cover Alien Bash. Okay. I don't know, but this one right away, and maybe you had the same feeling. I'm sure you did. This looked like someone raided the Bitmap Brothers refrigerator or something, and then they said, "Listen, what happens if we take some graphics from, say, some of the Bitmap Brothers stuff, and then make a sort of a gauntlet like shooter with it?" Well, what you've got is this. This is one of those weird games. It's like a smash 'em up type game where they took several different types of game and graphically and game wise and just sort of made a game. The game is you. I read the docs on this. One of the things this has going for it, since it's a PD game, is it's got like, it tells you what the plot is on the disc. I don't know if you read this. No,
I just skipped it completely.
Basically, I know you never watch the intros and you never read those things. The premise of this game is you were on a prison ship by these aliens, and you managed to take control of it. You freed some of your friends, took control of the ship, but it was pre-programmed to go to the aliens' homeworld. So now you're here to go in here and start whooping a bunch of butt with that's the point. That's the whole premise. And even in the docs, it says, "We know this is like a hackneyed premise. We're sorry." They admit that this is a generic premise.
Oh, well, at least they're honest about it.
Yeah, and it's not that generic. I mean, that's sort of unusual. Then it also tells you what all the weapons are. It tells you everything you need to know to play the game. So thumbs up for that in there. The game is you're a lone wolf. You go around and try to get through these levels. As you go through the levels, you will collect weapons. And when I say weapons, usually it's ammo. You don't really get your weapons. You get mostly from the store, which we'll get to that in a minute. But mostly what you're getting is coins, jewels, and the main thing you're getting is the enemy's skulls, which have value at these stores, which is also mentioned in documents. Because in case you were wondering why you were picking up these golden skulls, those are the guys' actual skulls. So as you go through the levels, and I can say I managed to get to level 3. That's as far as I could get. As you go through the game, you're picking all this stuff up, and you're advancing. And this is sort of like what it reminds me of a lot is. Do you remember when we played the Chaos Engine? There's a lot in common graphically.
Well, what I wonder is why you didn't go directly to Chaos Engine in terms of what this is a game inspired by, because maybe it's been a while since I played Chaos Engine, but to me this seems like the exact same game.
Well, Chaos Engine's deeper. There's a lot more ability to pick characters. That's the main.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a deeper game. You just pick a different.
Well,
dude.
I mean, it had better plot. It had more enemies. This basically has, at least as far as I went into it, I only saw the one enemy plus the end bosses, and then except for like the little worms or fish or whatever.
There's bosses that are different, but yeah, all through the game there's only one kind of enemy. But this game, I'm just going to stop you. This game is a direct ripoff of Chaos Engine. It's the same perspective. Your sprite is the same height. You're going through the same. You remember how on last week's ARG, Brent was talking about when the guy set the world record for Nibbler, he looked away from the screen and everything he saw was red because of the red.
Yeah.
If you play this game for longer than 5 minutes, you look away from the screen, everything you see is going to be brown.
I knew you were. I was just waiting. I was just waiting for you to hack on the colors. Listen, yes, this has a lot. They went and I'm assuming they ripped a bunch of stuff from the Chaos Engine. All right, that's you're not wrong. And the funny thing is, of course, you could tell this is why it feels like a Bitmap Brothers
because it's lame and sucks.
The sound of no, dude, the Bitmap Brothers don't suck. They've got a lot of good stuff. But the way the sound effects are, the way people are generated, the way people die, the little shaking jug at the bottom of fluid, that's quick.
We gotta add that shaking jug in there.
No, but it's a god.
Yeah, I know.
It has a lot.
You're not wrong.
That. The color palette's very much like that. There's a lot. Like I said, if you took gods in the Chaos Engine and made it gauntlet-y, that's what it reminds me of. All that said, if you're gonna rip off the best. And I think a lot of when I started this game, I was like, this is gonna suck. I did not have high hopes because I thought this was going to just be a generic run around game, and it's actually it's better than you would think. I mean, I have to say, I was ready to drop the hammer. I really was. I was like, I'm going to hate this. But the more I played it, the more I got into it. Now, are there problems? Absolutely. There are absolutely problems. And you mentioned one. Everything's brown. As far as I could go, the surroundings have never changed color. I looked at a video to skip forward. It looked like it never. I'm not sure it ever changes.
No, I watched the whole game on YouTube.
Yeah,
and it's basically this, just tons and tons and tons of stages.
Right. The enemy, like I said, for the most part, you fight the same guys over and over. It's in the same ways. However, it is the levels are sort of cunningly designed in a way that they use the screens. They use the length of the screen to hide secrets that you can't see because they're just off screen, and you've got to find the path to get over there. You don't have to go through this all the parts of the game to complete the level. But if you don't look at all of it, you're going to miss some stuff. As you go through the game, like I said, you're collecting money, you're collecting skulls, you're collecting gems. If you go everywhere, you'll get more money, and getting more money is important in this game because when you go to the in between levels is a store, and the stuff you get in the store is very valuable. More grenades, more missiles. You can get extra life bars. You can get a bunch of cool stuff that will help you. And if you don't, and it's expensive. So if you don't have all the money you can grab from these levels, you're going to be going to the store underfunded.
Now that said, there are plenty of opportunities to get money. There's money laying around. There's money hidden in things. You start blowing stuff up, and almost everywhere around you can get money. Now, what you said is true. All the items are really expensive.
It's like you're getting pennies.
Right. But it's the illusion that you're getting all this money until you go to the store. Yeah.
Yeah. I was stunned when I got to the store and I had like $600, and the cheapest good thing was $1,000. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what happened? I thought I got so much money. You have the ability to switch weapons. You can use the second button on your joystick, or you can use the keyboard, which is cool. The weapons I had at my disposal were the gun, missiles, and grenades. I think there's other stuff, but that's all I could ever get. There are secret areas that give you secret money. Sometimes money's like embedded in the walls. Sometimes stuff that you blow away in the middle of the dirt's got money in it. So there's money. There's lots of money. And sometimes you can shoot stuff that money will come out of it. So there's money to be had. But it's again, you want to get all the money you can. The mud world. I know you're not a. I don't know how. I can't remember. Did you say have you seen all the Fireflies?
Yeah,
I can't remember
I've seen Firefly.
This whole map reminds me of that world they go to where Jane has got his own statue, where all the mudders live, because everything here is all muddy and brown and cruddy looking. It just looks like a dump. I mean,
it's very much like Chaos Engine. I mean, Chaos Engine, possibly one of the least attractive games I've ever played in terms of my personal. I'm saying this from a very subjective point of view, but just the kind of colors that I dislike to look at are very prevalent, and this is much the same.
Yeah, I knew. I was like, when I started playing this and I saw how brown it was, I'm like, well, Boat's gonna crap on this.
Here's a real shocker for you, Aaron. I actually enjoyed playing this game, though.
That is a shock.
I found this game to be much more enjoyable than the Alien Breed games. You know, Alien Breed games are just so hard. They're so difficult, and you feel like you never make any progress in them. This game, you get in there, the game doesn't overwhelm you with enemies. It gives you stuff to pick up. Like, I like the store. I like picking up the pennies. I had fun doing that. The levels are not hard to get around. There's sort of a mini radar that shows you where things are.
The radar I didn't find that helpful.
Yeah, it wasn't that great. But I mean, I was able to get to and beat the first boss. Really, there's a lot. I thought the game played well. You know, I thought that the controls were tight. I thought the weapons, there's 3 weapons. I understood what they did and how I could use them. I found some secret places. I I've really got a lot of good things to say about this game. All of the bad things are stuff that you'd expect from PD games, because obviously somebody's just doing this for fun. There's no variety in the enemies. It's all the same enemies. There's no, there's a little bit of music in between levels, but there's not in-game music. The enemies make this horrible sound when they die. It's this, pig-like shriek, which I guess because they're pigs, it reminded me of like the enemies in Duke Nukem, the pig guys in there.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And so that's what I thought of. But, I really think that in terms of a PD game, this beats out a lot of commercially released games, and just the curve, the difficulty curve, the controls, the weapon selection, the store options, all of that stuff is great.
I agree. In fact, I think this could have easily been there's only 5 levels. So, but there were a few tweaks, and by that I mean maybe adding a few more enemies, maybe adding some more levels. You got yourself something that's definitely commercial grade. Now granted, they're ripping off a lot, a big chunk of it, but this could have been a game easily. It reminds me, like I said, it's got that same sort of map feel that a Chaos Engine or a Jurassic Park had. I don't remember I think you were out the week.
But I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
But the difference is, in Jurassic Park, everywhere I went, I was perpetually confused, and it was the map was built to screw you. In this, even without a map, I got around and didn't feel like I was lost, because they had cunningly designed everything to sort of end up in the same areas, so you weren't totally getting at least the levels I played, you weren't totally lost. Which is a thing I can't say. It's another thing with the Alien Breed games. I don't know where I'm going, and I'm not alive long enough to figure it out. But this, I was surprised at the quality of this game. I like the second button support. I like the ability to switch weapons. I like the fact that you can go to the store. I love in between store level stuff. I think that's great. This is sort of like Chaos. If it's a watered down version of Chaos Engine, I don't have a problem with that, and they do enough different stuff to where it's not. I don't think it's a total complete ripoff, but I thought it was a fun game. What I'd like to see is maybe simultaneous multiplayer would be fun. I would like to see more enemies. I like the fact here we are playing a PD game. It's got end bosses. It's got levels that are just long enough. If they get any longer, it'd been too long, So they knew when to say when on the levels. At least I only played through the first 2. It's a tiny bit of the third one. I thought I could get better as I played it, which is something I don't always feel like I'm getting anything accomplished on an Amiga game. I thought they gave you an ample amount of health and 3 men. I like that. There's no reason to make these games instant death. Maybe a hardcore gamer from the early 80s would be like, oh, this is lame, it's too easy. But for an old guy from the 20s, this is right up my alley. So overall, stunningly, I agree with you, Boat. I'm actually sort of surprised. I'm not too surprised that you dug it. And really, the reason I say that is because we've played a lot of public domain games, and it's sort of, there's a 50-50 split. Half of them have been not that good at all, and some of them have been surprisingly good. And this one falls into the category of surprisingly good. Is it Alien Fishbanger? No. But it's a darn competent game. It's not what I would call ultra original, but other than that, it's fun. It's fun play. If you got this on a magazine for free, you made out pretty well, I think, on this one. Again, there were no formal reviews on this one except for the Lemon score, Boat, which Lemon gave this a 7.63, which I think, now, of the 2 games we looked at today, which one did you prefer?
That's a tricky one. I'm probably going to go with Space Taxi, because I like games like Space Taxi more than games like Chaos Engine. But I was surprised. Both of us go into PD week with a certain amount of trepidation.
Which we should, because we've actually, for the most part, we've been pretty lucky. The guys know what to pick.
But I would say Space Taxi barely edges it out just because of the multiplayer and because I like the genre more. But both of these very solid entries.
If they were to take this game, add some bosses, and change the color palette for different levels, you could have released this. This would have been a full price game, and we probably would have looked at it, and it would have been perfectly fine. Again,
Psygnosis could have released this as is and just put a Roger Dean box art on top of it, and people would be fawning over it to this day.
No, they wouldn't because it's not hard enough.
That's true.
Get with the program.
All right.
Did you get any Discord action on this one, Boat?
Paul, aka Hermsky, writes, a Herm Firm 9 out of 10. Wow, absolutely brilliant. For a public domain game, this is a super little shooter that keeps you hooked for hours. Trading for new weapons and upgrades at the end of each level just adds extra value to the title. Exploring every nook and cranny, this game is crammed with nice touches. Not too difficult to play, but gets progressively harder and chaotic. Just watch out for the transforming alien bushes. The stats panel takes some getting to grips with, and I was left wondering what all the butterflies were for. Yeah, that was weird in a game that's so massively ugly why they decided to put beauty in it in that way. But, that's fine. Frodo NL writes, great shooter puzzler that I would happily have paid for had I owned an Amiga at the time. Graphics are nice, sound is decent, and the fact that one can choose how to handle shooting is a nice extra. While the game reminds me of Chaos Engine, I actually prefer this one. I just wish I was better at it. 8 out of 10.
That's the story of every game
Very
we play.
True.
For me.
Jason Warren says, polished, 7.5 out of 10. Chris Folds writes, an outright dirty clone of Chaos Engine. Average sound effects and no in-game music along with the palette make it a somber affair, and like the game it shamelessly clones, I just don't see the appeal. Not enough killing for an action game, not enough puzzle and exploration for an action adventure. Probably appeals to fans of the genre, but not enough to win me over. 6 out of 10. And finally, Pixels at Dawn writes, not going to win any points for originality, but it's also a good fun shooter in the Chaos Engine style and absolutely nails the aesthetic it sets out to, and impressively so for a small team. Music is sadly missing and a 2-player mode would really help, but still good fun for PD, 7.5 out of 10.
There's a couple things I want to bring up here before we take this thing to put it to bed. We didn't mention this, but as you get through this game, you're also rescuing prisoners or your buddies. So there's an element that makes you explore to get all these prisoners, which is what allegedly the radar was for. Also, I had to play this emulated. I had, excuse me, I had some trouble getting this thing to run and be able to see what's going on the Amiga. This again, I'm sure this is PAL related. One thing I want to mention is that Pixels at Dawn sent me over an article he'd found where they talked about this game. And one of the bits of trivia in it was, I'm going to try to catch you in the read because it's kind of hard to see, but the two guys that worked on this, Glenn Cumming and Miles Jeffrey, had many disagreements, it says, regarding the graphical look of the game. Miles is the big fan of the Bitmap brothers, no kidding, and it's reflected in the cartoon style of the sprites and the metallic blue and earthy brown color
Now, wait
palette.
a minute.
So there was no, it wasn't accidental that it looked like this.
But I mean, like, how could you... I don't understand how this is cartoonish. I mean, like, I think your dude looks pretty realistic for a 90s computer game. It's not like he's got, like, big anime eyes or something like that.
Well, maybe the other guy wanted a more authentic... I guess it does look like... It looks like an Akari Warriors or something like that. Maybe... I don't know. Hey, listen. I don't know what the guy was going for, but what they ended up with was, I guess we know who won the argument. The Bitmap brothers guy won the argument. And apparently that's what they were going for, to be honest with you. Because I looked at, like I said, looked at a couple of the pictures on Limit of the first one, and it doesn't look like this. So they, they probably made the right call, to be honest with you. I'll say, like I said, graphically, I mean, it looks like a professional joint here. And I looked up these guys. I don't know if they did a whole lot outside of this. I don't have anything written down. I don't know if I just didn't write it down. Or
I know that
the guys like this
if you look at this is from World of Long Plays, and if you this video that you're watching right now, and if you look at I think it's actually, maybe it's not. I forgot to put the courtesy thing up here to let us know. But anyway, the long play that I took this from on YouTube, the writer of the game actually comments on there. And he says that he wishes that the levels would have been more varied, and he also wishes that he wrote more games. So this might have been one of the few games that he wrote.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now, and these two guys, they did the Alien Bash games. That's it. So that is quite a surprise if you consider, what they could do. So I mean, I think these guys. I wonder how they were even discovered, to be honest with you. How did they even get something to put on the magazine cover? Maybe they just worked on this game. They disagreed on how it went, and that's the last time they ever worked together, and that's the last thing they ever did on the Amiga. Yeah. That's a bummer, man. Make some new stuff, boys. You got talent.
Well, Aaron, of course, we want to thank all of the fine folks that are watching us live in the chat right now. Pixels at Dawn doing a great job modding. Smash 1980 is here with us. Barkbit, Picard 2010, Polyester Links, L. Curtis B. Edvin was here hanging out with us earlier. Ricky DeRocher was here. Wishbone. So, and Hermsky was here. So we want to thank all the fine folks in the chat.
Thanks, boys.
And let's see. Oh, yeah, we've also got, I forgot, Brent always reads off all of the guys, and I guess I should probably have done that instead.
All the lurkers. He loves that. He loves the lurkers. I think he is a lurker, and that's why he's shouting out. He's the only one that shouts out to him.
And we want to thank everybody that subscribes to us on Twitch. If you are an Amazon Prime customer, you can subscribe to Amigos on Twitch, Amigos Retro Gaming, and it doesn't cost you a dime, and it helps support us. So we appreciate all those fine folks.
You have to do it monthly.
Right.
That's one thing
you got to refresh it every month. Of course, we want to thank all the fine folks, all of the music lovers out there that got last week's song correct, the Patreon song from last week. Quite a few of you got this one. This was Space Oddity by David Bowie. And Zorglub, Packbilly, Mitsuyama, Jason Warnes, Hermsky, Chris Folds, Christian Russell, Frodo NL, Gary Heather, Paul Kitching, 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast, Cowbird Boy. All got it correct. And Cowbird Boy mentions that he says that was easy. The giveaway was that Clone Boat on the right wore the same makeup and footwear that David Bowie used in his original video. I'm glad you caught that, Cowbird Boy.
The only thing you had in common.
All right. So let's go ahead and crank up this week's Patreon video. Oh, before I do that, next week, Aaron, we're going to be playing Elite.
Oh, yes. Oh, my.
Cameron Armstrong suggested this to the Amigos Game Selection Committee. We played Elite 2, so we're going to go back in time and take a look at Elite 1.
This should be interesting.
But if you know the answer to this week's Patreon Song Challenge, send me a message on email, john@amigospodcast.com. So here we go.
Simulant, Jeremy Jones, Ethan Little, Alien Breeder, Dave Velociraptor, Cowbird Boy, Joel Fuchs, Lane Denson, Luke Hudson, John Cook, Rich Drury, Roshi, Frodo in Hell, Tech Mage Jurgen, Mr. Cola, Daniel Williams, Bernard Lucas, Jerry Dennington, Zorg Love, Commodore Kid Reflection, Simon Letch, Cap'n Crispy, Kilobytes and Caffeine, Gary Head, The Free Lunch, Kate Fox, David Pickford, Cameron Armstrong, Andy Jones, Lobsterminator, 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast, Bernard Quinn, Retro Man K, Tim Drew, Simon Rose, Joseph Harrison, Kyle Letter, Rob O'Hara, Matthew Larimore, Andy Craig, Shanzo, Barkbit, Roland Bird, Andrew Monks, Joe the Zombie, Leaf Kellon, Alan Keba, Checo De Level Lord, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky the Rosha, Creepy Dead Boy, Figgy CTZ, Stefan Sorgarn Mortensen, Edvin Helen Blendo 75, Christopher Hassel, Ravi Abbott, Chris Folds, Dreamcatcher, Lawrence Giroux, Graham Bebke, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Gary Hucker, C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Stiles, Tapes from the Crypt, Josh Nash, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THT, Eric Nelson, Kim Tommy Humberstadt, Daniel Bingston, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warnes, Pixels of Dawn. I'm already out of the song. There's only one more name, and that is... I'm trying to think about what it is. What could it be? Does it sound like something said by Gimli? I think it does. Kjolbjorn Barm.
All right, so it looks like some of you in the chat knew that one. Actually, I think that's most people in the chat that have ever said, hey, I know it. So good work, guys.
You know, that guy playing guitar was okay, but the other guy
sucks. I hate him. He's no good.
Get him. You need to get that guy out of there. He's horrible. He's bringing down the rest of the band.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you next week for Elite. Until then, adios.
Adios.